What's up, Scott? Well, then you can go. People are trying to
Except, no,
personally, technically they are only entitled to one person to have a recommendation. They also have one person that they
right.
They are only given one vote. None of them. Thank you. All right, Caleb, you have all three presentations.
Yes, I have 113, 170, and 69.
170 in particular, I had to slash and burn because it was 4 pages. So
Yeah.
Good afternoon. The time for convening has arrived. The Senate will come to order. At this time, I'll ask all unauthorized personnel to exit the chamber. I recognize the senator from the 6th. Speak to the Journal.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. I know I did. Mr. President, the good senator from the 14th pointed out to me today that we have an anomaly in the Georgia State Senate and really in the State House as well. Something that is a rare occurrence. And it's where our legislative days line up with the actual date of the calendar. Today is the 18th day of the legislative calendar, and it's the 18th day of February. Tomorrow the 19th, then the 20th, then the 21st. I found that very interesting, and I know the senator from the 14th did as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's good work. I'm glad you spent the weekend working hard for the people of Georgia. Mr. President, we got a great list of pages here today, and a long list of pages today. We have from Marietta, Kinsey Moon, from Noonan, Georgia, the city of Holmes. I have some good friends of mine, Adeline and William Craver. From Cumming, we have Gavin Carrillo and Animesh Mookie. Out of Jefferson, we have Emmeline Coulter and Katie Grace Metzger. Out of Statesboro, we have the Simpkins sisters, Isla and Isley. Out of Fayetteville, James Larson. Out of Marietta, Ella Campbell and Landon Campbell. Out of Marietta, Jonathan Walensky. Out of Marietta, we have Aveen Zarakani. Out of Stone Mountain, Johnny Griffith. Out of Atlanta, Elizabeth Bauer. Out of Atlanta, Adelaide Locker. Out of Decatur, Nathaniel Gale. His daddy's running around here, Tom. Also out of Decatur, we have Sierra Kohler. Out of Sewanee, Samdesh Thukral. Out of Cumming, Paige Young. Out of Milledgeville, we have Yana Baladwala. Out of Milledgeville, we have Avery Lee and Sachin Roshan. Out of Milledgeville, we have Morgan Smith. Mr. President, I normally get down the line and make sure I pronounce all these names right, and I didn't have time to get it all the way down, so if I butchered a name or two, I do apologize. But, Mr. President, the Journal has been read and found to be correct.
Yeah, there's a bad echo, too. We got IT coming to look at the sound system right now because not only were you mispronouncing their names, the echo made it sound even worse, you know. So, but you did a wonderful job, Senator. I'm proud of you. Is there objection to dispensing of the reading of the Journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the Journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to confirmation of the Journal? Chair hears none, and the Journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and references of Senate bills. Secretary?
Senate Bill 168 by Senator Moore, the 53rd, and others. Bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48-7-20 of the Official Code of Georgia. Senate Bill 169 by Senator Still, the 48th. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Bill 170 by Senator Jackson, the 41st, and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 12, Title 50.
Government Oversight.
Senate Bill 171 by Senator Anna Vitarte, the 31st, and others. Bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 6.
Education to Youth.
Senate Bill 172 by Senator Mallow II and others. Bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 14 of Title 40 of
Public Safety.
Senate Bill 173 by Senator McLaurin of the 14th and others. Bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 11 of Title 9 of the Official
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 174 by Senator McLaurin of the 14th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 8 of Title 17.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 175 by Senator Robertson of the 29th and others, bill to be entitled an act to amend Article...
Ethics.
Senate Bill 176 by Senator Robertson of the 29th and others, bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 17 of the official...
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 177 by Senator Anavitarte of the 31st and others, bill to be entitled an act...
Ethics.
Senate Bill 178 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th and others, bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of...
Banking.
Senate Bill 179 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 180 by Senator Dixon of the 45th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 4 of Title 20 of the Official Code
Higher
of Georgia.
education.
Senate Bill 181 by Senator Anavitarte of the 31st and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1.
Education and youth.
Senate Bill 182 by Senator Halpern of the 39th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 50 of the Official Code.
Economic development.
Senate Bill 183 by Senator Islam Parks of the 7th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48-8-
Finance.
Senate Resolution 191 by Senator Jackson of the 41st and others, a resolution recognizing black maternal health statistics.
Health and Human Services.
Senate Resolution 197 by Senator Islam Parks of the 7th, a resolution recognizing...
Rules.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
First reading and references to House bills.
House Bill 36 by Representative Leverett of the 123rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 29 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated.
Judiciary.
House Bill 74 by Representative Powell of the 33rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 27.
Economic development.
House Bill 81 by Representative Ballard of the 147th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 20.
Education and youth.
House Bill 105 by Representative Wade of the 9th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40.
Education and youth.
House Bill 252 by Representative Smith of the 70th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to
State and
provide.
local government.
House Bill 349 by Representative Alexander of the 66 and others, a bill to be entitled an act.
State and local government.
House Bill 355 by Representative Tran of the 80th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend.
State and local government.
House Bill 356 by Representative Tran of the 80th, a bill to be entitled an act to create the city of...
State and local government.
House Bill 359 by Representative Kelly of the 16th, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the city of...
State and local government.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
Secretary Reed reports of standing committee.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 105 due pass. Senate Bill 144 due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Goodman of the 8th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Children and Families has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 98 due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 100 due pass. Senate Bill 110 due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Education and Youth has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 17 due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 123 due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Hickman of the 4th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 55 due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Walker of the 20th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 88 due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 40 due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 42nd District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 125 due pass. Senate Bill 127 due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowsert of the 46th District, Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations General has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Bill 51 due pass. Senate Bill 138 due pass by substitute. Senate Bill 139 due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Dixon of the 45th District, Chairman. Dear Mr. Secretary, pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.6, I hereby give notice I will introduce a minority report to be read along with a majority report of Senate Bill 139, which was passed by the Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations on Thursday, February 13th, 2025. Sincerely, Senator Estevez. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Secretary Reed bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Bill 30 by Senator Watson of the 1st and others, hospitals and related institutions, hormone therapies, and puberty-blocking medications for certain purposes to minors, prohibit prescribing or administering. Senate Bill 45 by Senator Watson of the 11th and others, bona fide conservation use property, the maximum acreage to qualify for assessment and taxation increase. Senate Bill 46 by Senator Harbin of the 16th and others, Government Serves the People Act, enact. Senate Bill 59 by Senator Watson of the 11th and others, bona fide conservation use property, a limitation on leased property, remove. Senate Bill 89 by Senator Strickland of the 42nd and others, income taxes, amount of a tax credit based on the federal tax credit for certain child and dependent care expenses, increase. Senate Bill 91 by Senator Tillery, the 19th and others, State Employees Health Insurance Plan, Board of Community Health, from entering into, executing, or renewing a contract with any pharmacy benefit manager that owns or has ownership interest in any retail pharmacy, prohibit. Senate Bill 96 by Senator Eccles of the 49th and others, Official Code of Georgia Annotated, provisions creating certain boards, panels, authorities, centers, commissions, committees, councils, task forces, and other such bodies, update and modernize. Senate Resolution 56 by Senator Watson of the 11th and others, bona fide conservation use property, maximum acreage to qualify for assessment and taxation, increase. Mr. President, that completes the order.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Recognize the senator from the 31st.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 30th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 30th is excused. Recognize the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, y'all. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 27th and the 26th. And the second.
Second. 27th, 26th, and the second.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's something wrong with the sound system right now. We got some folks coming to look at it, so everything sounds muffled.
My girlfriend tells me that all the time.
Without objection, senators from the 27th, 26th, and the second are excused. Any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll. Senator, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary, unlock the machine. Senator from the 33rd, do you mean to have your light on? You have your light on? No. It is now time for our morning devotion. All senators, please take your seats and cease all conversation. I would ask that the doorkeepers secure the chamber at this time. It is my pleasure to have the senator of the 11th introduce our pastor of the day, as well as lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Senator?
Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Georgia flag. Pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, the principles of which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, courage. Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor today to introduce the Reverend Dion Brown. He is the associational missionary for the Colquitt County Baptist Association back home. He was actually born in San Francisco, California, but grew up in Palm Beach. And I asked him how that happened, and he said it's a long story, and God works in mysterious ways. So, but he obtained his bachelor's degree from Palm Beach Atlantic University. Got his degree in religion and religious studies there at Palm Beach. He got his Master of Divinity from Mid-American Baptist Theological Seminary, And in 1992, he entered the full-time ministry, serving as a youth pastor for 9 years. And then in 2001, he became the pastor of New Bethel Baptist Church in Colquitt County. In 2015, he became the associational missionary for the Colquitt County Baptist Association, and his job there is to help coordinate the 38 Baptist churches that we have in our association. He's married to Jeannie for 44 years. He has 3 sons and 4 grandkids, and of course they reside there in Moultrie and Colquitt County. And of course back home he's referred to as the pastor of pastors. And I can't imagine what that feels like to not only have the burden of all those pastors, but also the joy that comes with that job and participating with them. But we're thankful for the job that he does in Colquitt County to minister to our churches, to minister to our pastors, and to just make sure that faith is strong and that our churches continue to grow and thrive. So it's my honor to have him here today and share him. Reverend Brown.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm indeed honored to be able to share in this moment. Perhaps these words have been shared in this chamber on numerous occasions, but you'll remember that the 26th President of the United States of America, Teddy Roosevelt, said this on April 23rd, 1910 in Paris, France. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, and who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. But this begs the question, doesn't it? Where does one get the courage necessary to ignore the critics, both external and internal, to ignore the naysayers and the compromised, to stand and to work for what is right and just and true and noble when it's not popular, nor expedient, nor profitable? Where does one find the fortitude to say no to the temptation to enrich oneself at the expense of others, to say no to the temptation to abuse power or to compromise that which is right and true? Where does one find the wisdom to know what is truly a worthy cause, the wisdom to know one's own heart and the motivations that are leading it, the wisdom to know and do what is right when no one is watching? And where does one find the sense of purpose to press on when you are weary in the fight, when support is falling away and others are turning back, to be able to envision what might be the outcome of that worthy cause and to press on? I would contend with you this day that the best way to find the courage, fortitude, wisdom, and sense of purpose that you need to strive valiantly and to spend yourself in a worthy cause would be to find yourself in Christ. And what does that mean, you might ask? It means to turn away from your efforts to justify your standing in this world and your standing before God our Creator, and to receive as a gift the justification that Jesus Christ lived and died to give us. It means to transfer your hope and confidence from the filthy rags of our own good works and to place our trust in Jesus, who lived a sinless life before God. He said himself that he came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. He's the only one who has ever satisfied the requirements of the law. To be found in Christ also means that we trust that his death on the cross is what pays the just penalty for our sins. Paul put it this way in 2 Corinthians 5:21. God made him who knew no sin to become sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Finally, for our purposes here today, to be in Christ means to know that because Jesus is raised from the dead, that we too one day will be raised into a new resurrection life. The resurrection of Jesus is the down payment on the new heaven and on the new earth, the day when everything is set right. Paul summed it up like this to the Corinthians. Now I want to remind you of the gospel I preached to you, which you have received and on which you have now taken your stand. By this gospel you are saved, if you hold firmly to the word I preached to you. Otherwise you have believed in vain. For what I received I passed on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Peter and to James and to 500 at one time. By faith in Jesus Christ, in his life, his death, and his resurrection, we are declared righteous in the sight of God. Our sins are forgiven, and we are raised up with him into a brand new life. When you know that you are forgiven, that you are loved so deeply that the very Son of God would live and die to make you clean in the sight of God and claim you as his own child, and when you know that your physical death is not the end, but rather the door to an immortal life, then you can enter the arena with confidence and courage. You can fight the good fight. You can live generously and graciously while boldly standing for what is true and right. The courage, the fortitude, the wisdom, and the sense of purpose that we need to live valiantly is available to us through the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's available to all who will follow him by faith and commit themselves to him. Would you join me as we pray? Gracious and holy Father, we praise you and we thank you again for this moment and for this day and for this opportunity to reflect on your word. We thank you, Lord Jesus, that you willingly came into this world to identify with us, to live for our sake, and to take the penalty of our sin in your death. We praise you that you are raised as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Lord, we would ask now that you would bless the deliberations of this place this day. We thank you for these senators, for those who serve in this place. We ask that you give them wisdom, that you would grant them insight, that you would grant them direction, and that, Father, you would grant them grace to know you more than anything else. Father, we praise you and we bless you and thank you for your kindness to us in Christ. We thank you for the love that you have showered upon us in him, that we could be called the children of God by faith in Jesus Christ. We praise you for all this and ask these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
it is always. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Senator Watson, can you hear me all right? Can you hear? You can hear me right now? You can't hardly hear. I can't hear it right now. So it is all right. Always a pleasure to have the Doctor of the Day. I'm going to ask the Senator from the 41st to introduce our Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my great privilege to introduce to you all our Doctor of the Day, Dr. Daniel Lopez. Dr. Lopez is a board-certified family medicine physician with the Southwest Permanente Medical Group, and he provides care for Kaiser Permanente members here in Georgia. As a specialist in family medicine, Dr. Lopez does it all. So whatever you have going on with you, he can take care of you. He has all the right credentials to do really great work that we don't need to name out loud, but I do want to acknowledge that I'm proud to say that he lives in my district in La Vista Park with his family, where he's married and is the proud father of not one, not two, but 3 14-year-olds. God bless him. He enjoys running and hiking and doing a whole lot of things with some 14-year-olds.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's always a great honor to return and be part of this great tradition. In the name of MAG, the Medical Association of Georgia, the Southeast Permanente Medical Group, which I proudly represent, I want to thank you for all you do for the House of Medicine. Thank you for guiding us and allow us to do what we do best. What we want to do is taking care of our patients. In the Southeast Permanente Medical Group, I don't know if you know this, but we are the largest self-governed physician-owned medical group in the state. And together with our Permanente Federation colleagues, we are the largest medical group in the nation. We are extremely proud of our Permanente model of delivering medicine, and we have the greatest quality. I always say this when I come, check the data. We are the best in quality and patient satisfaction in Georgia. I just want to wish you a very successful and productive session. If you run into trouble, and health trouble, that is, you will be in good hands. But thank you.
All right, good job. Thank you. We have some special guests here today. Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 113 by Senator Brass of the 6th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Georgia's certified registered nurse anesthetics and for other purposes. Whereas in 1938, 17 CRNAs established the Georgia Association of Nurse Anesthetics, which has grown to represent more than 1,600 members and is among the oldest and largest CRNA state organizations in the United States. And whereas CRNAs in Georgia are committed to caring for Georgia citizens by providing vigilant, high-quality, cost-effective anesthesia services. And whereas CRNAs for our anesthesia professionals who safely administer more than 50 million anesthetics to patients each year in the United States. And whereas CRNAs represent more than 80% of the anesthesia providers in rural counties. And whereas half of all rural hospitals in the United States use a CRNA-only model for obstetric care, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Georgia's certified registered nurse anesthetics for their dedicated dedication to the health and well-being of citizens of this state, and extend best wishes for continued success. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Recognize the senator from the 6th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me a great honor to honor Gana and all the nursing anesthesia students we have with us today up in the balcony. Appreciate y'all being here and advocating for your future profession. On the stage with me, I have Matt Oxford, Shannon Broxton, and Nisha Velopin. And I'm going to yield for Matt to come up and say a few words. But before I do want to introduce Matt. He serves as the current president for the Georgia Association of Nurse Anesthetists. And I got to tell you, he is my favorite president that has ever served in that role, only because he relieved my wife of her duties as president. So, baby, I love you, but he's my favorite because that gave you back to me. Matt attended University of Georgia, receiving a Bachelor's of Education in Sports Management, and continued on to obtain a Master's and Doctorate in Nursing from Augusta University. Currently, he works at North Star Anesthesia as a CRNA, and outside of his work in Ghana, he is also part of the American College of Healthcare Executives. And a little footnote, he used to coach college basketball at the University of Central Florida. With that, I give you Matt Oxford.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Brass. Thank you all for having us today. We just want to thank you for your dedication to Georgians and your partnership with us to create a healthier Georgia. Thank you to our students that are here, and thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, good job. Good job. Good job, Mr. President. We glad to have the Panthers from Clark, Atlanta here today. So, Secretary, read the resolution, please.
Senate Resolution 170 by Senator Orac of the 36 and others, a resolution recognizing February 18th, 2025 as Clark Atlanta University Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas Clark Atlanta University was the nation's first four-year liberal arts college to serve a primarily African-American student population, and whereas the university's 4 schools offer 40 academic programs to 3,920 students annually, contributing to the future workforce through training in technology, engineering, and education, as well as fostering leadership within Georgia. And whereas Clark Atlanta University received a record-breaking 46,414 applications for the class of 2028, and whereas Clark Atlanta University's economic impact on the state of Georgia consists of $541 million in combined gross sales, a direct impact of $400 million, and labor producing 3,282 full and part-time jobs that contribute to Georgia's economy. And whereas Clark Atlanta University is a founding member of the Georgia Research Alliance and is home to the Center for Cancer Research and Therapeutic Development. And whereas Clark Atlanta University is an important contributor to local, regional, and national communities, engaging more than 1,000 student and faculty volunteers annually. And whereas under the leadership of President Dr. George T. French Jr., Clark Atlanta University has received the largest unrestricted donation in the university's history. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Clark Atlanta University, as well as President Dr. George T. French Jr. for his leadership, extensive experience, and unwavering dedication to higher education, and be it further resolved that the members of this body recognize February 18th, 2025 as Clark Atlanta University Day of the state capitol. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Recognize the senator from the 36th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I am honored today to bring to you the leadership of University. Like now and reintroduce Clark Atlanta University Day here at the Capitol. All right. I'm just so honored to bring before you the leadership of this institution and recognize it as one of the backbone elements of what makes Atlanta and Georgia so special. Clark Atlanta University was formed when the AU and Clark College were combined, and their years go back to 1865. The American Missionary Association was the nation's first institution to, through Clark University to award graduate degrees to African Americans. Clark Atlanta University, I want you to know, is also the largest of the 37-member United Negro College Fund institutions. When it was established in 1869, it was the nation's first four-year liberal arts college to serve a primarily African American student population. They today have 4,000 students and counting, enormous application rates and acceptance rates, and it's the largest of the four institutions, Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, Spelman College, and Morehouse School of Medicine, that comprise the Atlanta University Center Consortium. And if you don't know it yet, you know it now. This is the largest African American university complex in the world. And it's part of what makes Georgia and Atlanta so special. I want to bring to you the president, Dr. George T. French Jr., to speak with us about the incredible accomplishments that we're seeing at Clark AU. Dr. French became the 5th president of Clark Atlanta University, which, as I said, is the largest United Negro College Fund member institution in the country. And Clark is the largest private HBCU within our state of Georgia. Prior to his appointment as the Clark AU president, Dr. French served for 14 years as the president of Miles College, making him one of the longest-serving university presidents in the nation, nationally recognized as a leader and influencer in higher education and educational policy. He served 3 secretaries of education under 2 United States presidents as a congressional appointee to the National Advisory Committee on Institutional Quality and Integrity. His education was launched, higher education, at University of Louisville, followed by Miles Law School, Juris Doctorate, and Jackson State University, PhD. His notable achievements since he's been at Clark AU, providing his leadership, they have exponentially exceeded all fundraising records in the history of the university, maintained stable enrollment in the midst of the global pandemic, and develop corporate and community relationships to position the university for unprecedented growth, which is a win-win for our entire region. He's been recognized as a Birmingham Spotlight Man of the Year, NAACP Man of the Year, Higher Education Leader Foundation Lifetime Achievement Award. We've got a superstar heading up Clark Atlanta University. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And his leadership is evident in the accomplishments that he's going to share with you now. Please help welcome Dr. French.
All right.
Thank you, Senator. To Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who presides over this body, to President Pro Tem John F. Kennedy, to my good friend Minority Leader Harold Jones, to again thank you, Senator Nan Orak, for authoring the Clark Atlanta University resolution, most certainly to all of the honorable men and women who make up this illustrious body, which is the Georgia State Senate. We bring you greetings on behalf of Clark Atlanta University, our faculty, staff, students, our Board of Trustees, alumni, and more than 4,000 students who make up what Senator Orrock noted as the largest HBCU within the Atlanta University Center and the only university offering the bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees. We celebrate today at Clark Atlanta University, thankful for the Senate support of Senator Sonia Halpern, her HBCU Study Committee, which was intense and intentional. Thank you, Senator. We celebrated Clark Atlanta University New Technology and Innovation Partnerships, which is inclusive of the recent announcement that Clark Atlanta University is the only HBCU in the nation to offer now the PhD in cyber physical systems. We are thankful, as the senator also noted, for 46,000 applications for our incoming class. That class only had 1,200 seats, but 46,000 applications. And finally, when I became president 5 years ago, the average GPA of the incoming class was 2.8. Lieutenant Governor, the average GPA of this incoming class is 3.71. Enhanced exponentially. So we've just come today to thank you for Clark Atlanta University, Tuesday, February the 18th, day at the Georgia Capitol. Thank you for each of your support. Thank you to my leadership team, which is standing here behind me, and for alums who are here today. May God bless the great state of Georgia. And know one thing for sure, at Clark Atlanta University, Georgia is sure enough on our minds. Thank you so much.
All right, we've got some more special guests today with us. The Secretary will now read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 69 by Senator Ginn of the 47th and others, a resolution commending the Georgia FFA Association and recognizing February 18th, 2025 as FFA Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas the Georgia FFA Association ranks as the third largest state FFA association in the nation with more than 81,000 current members and 402 local chapters across the state. And whereas the mission of the FFA is to make a positive difference in the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agricultural education. And whereas the FFA prepares young people for more than 300 careers in agriculture and agribusiness, ranging from production to sales, biotechnology, and environmental science. Now therefore be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend the Georgia FFA Association for its contributions to the welfare of the state and nation and recognize February 18th, 2025 as FFA Day at the state capitol. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon our distinguished senator from the 47th to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good to be with everybody today, but I want you to look around the room and I want you to realize blue and gold's a good color. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize what FFA really stands for, and that's the Future Farmers of America. When I'll stand up here, I look around to my left and I see some older farmers. One over here to my right, that's a chairman of our Ag Committee, an older farmer. But our future depends on our youth. And FFA is a great leadership tool to promote our youth and promote our state and to promote our world. And so with that, I'm going to call on our Vice President, Jackson Guthrie. Jackson, if you would come up and let me present you with this resolution. It's great to have you here in the Senate today. And if you would, give us a few words.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all so much for this opportunity here today. I feel privileged to be here with y'all. My team and I are proud to be representing nearly 82,000 Georgia FFA members here today. Now, despite being the 8th most populated state, Georgia has the 3rd most enrollment membership of middle and high school students in agriculture education classes. And not only is our state association one of the largest, but we are also one of the most successful. This past October at National Convention, we were able to bring home 12 national champions, a national officer, and the American Star Farmer. Now we are able, yes. Thank y'all. We are able to achieve this level of success in large part because of the level of support we receive from policymakers and supporters like you. It is evident to us that y'all value agriculture education and the work of FFA, not only by the support we receive from your legislation, but also by opportunities like today, where we get to come and engage on a closer level. Y'all are living our FFA vision statement, which vows that FFA is growing the next generation of leaders who will change the world. Thank you for the part you play in that. Your support is appreciated by every member that FFA turns into a harder worker and a greater leader. So let's continue to keep Georgia FFA and agriculture at the top. Thank y'all.
If I could, I'd like to recognize the blue and gold in our, if y'all would stand up, let us recognize you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator from the 47th, for that. We occasionally have special guests that come and visit us on the floor, and today is no exception. A distinguished congressman represents one of the southern district, the 2nd congressional district, but we think of him as representing part of South Georgia, and that's our good friend, Congressman Sanford Bishop is with us today. Let's give him a warm welcome. Would you like to come? Congressman, give us some words of wisdom from Washington, if there are any. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, it is indeed a privilege and an honor for me to be back home. I served in this body, and I have to start by saying this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I am glad to be here. I'm glad for the foundation that I got right here in this body and across the hall in the State House. I spent 16 years of my life walking these halls, learning the fundamentals of politics, learning that politics is nothing more, nothing less than who gets what, when, and how. That's the basic definition, but it's you, the elected officials, that make those decisions, that allocate those resources. And so I'm glad to be here. You represent the same folks that I represent. We represent the same constituents, but the good thing, I think, is that in this body and the body across the hall, this General Assembly, you lead the country in the ability to get things done, and you're number one in the country, and I appreciate that so much, and I appreciate all of the lessons that I was able to learn here in this esteemed body. Now, we have differences of opinion. We have all kinds of challenges that are facing our country on the national level, on the state level, and on the local level. But we all must focus not on the things that divide us, but we must focus on our common goals, our common hopes, and our common aspirations. Because, believe it or not, we have more things in common than divide us. I believe that all of us are here, and we are at this precise moment in history in the places where the Almighty God put us, because He wanted us to use this opportunity to make a difference for the people that we serve. In this state, the number one driver of our state's economy, the number one engine that drives that is agriculture. The number two industry is defense, military, veterans. Number three, financial services. Many people don't understand that, but those are things that drive this state, that keep this state number one in doing business. And so together we must work for all of the people of this state, from every county in every region. We must work together so that we work for and in behalf of those folks that we jointly serve to improve and have the highest quality of life. Health care, economic development, education, all of these things are vital for the well-being of our people. But we are here we're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, but we are called for one purpose, and that's to make a difference. And it is my hope that together, on the national level, on the state level, on the local level, that we focus on that we use the time that we have, and it's limited. None of us will be in these seats forever, but the time that we have, it's important that we use it for the betterment of the people we serve. I leave you with my favorite poem. It's anonymous, but made famous by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. It's called God's Minute. I have only just a minute only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it. I must suffer if I lose it. Give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. Let's use God's minute that He has given us in these seats of power that we hold for the betterment of those we serve and the betterment of all of God's children, the betterment of humanity. Thank you. God bless you in the work that you do. God bless the state of Georgia. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Hey, good to have you here, sir. Okay, moving along. Y'all strap in. Are there any unanimous consents? The chair hears none. We'll now move on to points of personal privilege. Does any senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? Senator from the 33rd.
First of all, sir, I'd like to excuse the senator from the 22nd for business outside the Capitol in the 27th, 7th, and 41st.
22nd, the 41st, and the 7th?
Yes, sir.
The senators are excused. Thank you.
And then
without objection. Okay, moving on to points of personal privilege. Senator from the 39th, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning or afternoon, colleagues. Well, today is Savannah State University Day at the Capitol, and I rise to recognize our interim president, Cynthia Robinson Alexander. Since becoming interim president of Savannah State University on July 1st, 2023, she has focused her attention on attracting, retaining, and graduating students. With her financial expertise, she stabilized the university's budget by optimizing underperforming areas. Drawing on her 30 years of leadership in business and higher education, Interim President Alexander implemented a shared governance framework, established the SSU Forward Committee, and launched the inaugural 40 Under 40 cohort. She maintains an open-door policy emphasizing collaboration. Under her leadership, SSU has seen its first enrollment increase since 2019. She's revitalized the Student Success Center and expanded academic offerings, including new programs in film, digital entertainment, and forensic science. The forensic science program has secured nearly $900 million in federal funding, and SSU became the exclusive HBCU partner of the King and Queen of the Netherlands. President Alexander has also overseen significant campus improvements, including a $1.1 million renovation of the T.A. Wright Stadium, a $300,000 master plan, and a $7 million HVAC project. SSU also received a $60,000 campus improvement grant from the Home Depot Retool Your School program. Prior to her role as interim president, Ms. Alexander has led the financial and business operations at the University System of Georgia and held senior positions at Sumitomo Life Realty. She holds degrees from Brown University, Harvard University, and Boston University, and has served on several boards and received numerous accolades. I have personally enjoyed working alongside her to amplify the accomplishment and the dreams and desires of the #1 producer of African-American marine science graduates in the country and Georgia's oldest public HBCU. While her tenure ends this summer, Savannah State University has been lucky to have had her steady leadership, her tenacity, and her dedication. Congratulations, Interim President Alexander, and go Tigers. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The chair now will recognize the senator from the 44th for a points of personal privilege.
This morning, I rise to decry a devastating attack on the health and safety of our nation. The Trump administration has ordered an indiscriminate firing of 1,300 CDC employees, gutting 10% of the agency's workforce, the very people responsible for protecting us from disease outbreaks and public health threats. This reckless decision was delivered without consideration and without regard for the consequences. These are not bureaucratic paper pushers. They are scientists, epidemiologists, and disease detectives, many of whom are working to track and prevent future pandemics. Worse, there was no consideration for who does what or how important that particular job might be. It was simply, have you been hired in the last 2 years? And if you had been, you just got a letter saying your job performance was poor and you were out of a job. No matter the fact that many of these employees have stellar performance reviews. But to Trump and his billionaire allies, they were nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet. Elon Musk, who now fancies himself as a co-president and sort of appears to be one, has been working hand in hand with Trump to slash essential services while ensuring massive tax breaks for billionaires. Musk has called for defunding the federal government while conveniently raking in government contracts and subsidies for his own companies. Now, he and Trump are targeting public health, our first line of defense against pandemics, bioterrorism, and emerging health crises. And let's be clear, this is not about efficiency. It's not about saving money. The CDC's budget is a drop in the bucket compared to the tax cuts that Trump and Musk want for their wealthy friends. This is about weakening government, no matter the cost, to ordinary Americans. The people laid off include experts in infectious diseases, emergency response, and public health researchers, many of whom have spent years building up their expertise to keep Americans safe. And let's be clear that losing all of that expertise will, in fact, end up costing taxpayers more money, which is the position that the administration has found itself in when it indiscriminately fired a bunch of people at a different agency and then had to try to figure out how to hire them back. Let's remember, it was the CDC that helped lead the fights against Ebola, Zika, COVID, and countless other health threats just in recent years. It's the CDC that ensures clean water, safe food, and reliable vaccines. But now, thanks to Trump and Musk, we have fewer experts, fewer resources, and greater risk to public health. That, my colleagues, is not leadership. That's sabotage. It is an ideological war against expertise, science, and the very idea that the government should serve the people. So today we are saying enough. We demand that Congress take immediate steps to reinstate these experts who are working to protect all of us and all Georgians, and to stop the Trump administration from destroying our public health infrastructure, and to hold Musk and his billionaire cronies accountable for their role in undermining our safety. I have always been very proud to represent the CDC and many of its employees in the state Senate. But today I'm extremely concerned because this is not just a fight for jobs. It is a fight for our lives, our health, and our future. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Recognize the senator from the 13th for appointed personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm not here to talk about issues today. I'm here to talk about food and fun. This afternoon at 5 o'clock in the Blue Room, there will be Crisp County's putting on a little deal to say thank you for all the stuff that's done for the only Veterans Park in Georgia, which is in Crisp County, where Lake Blackshear is. And there'll be two functions going on, one in the Blue Room, one in the Big Room. I come invite you to go to both of them. I think Savannah's doing in the Big Room. But please come to both of them, or Chatham County, I'm not sure. Is it Chatham? Glenn County, I'm sorry, is in the blue room, the big room. But please come at 5 o'clock. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll yield well.
Recognize the senator from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, just wanted to remind you that today is also Brunswick Golden Isles Chamber of Commerce Day at the Capitol, and we will have a whole bunch of people at the depot at 5, cocktails from 5 to 6, and from 6 to 8. We've got a veritable shrimp boat full of fried shrimp for you, as well as Low Country Boil, put on by one of the best seafood vendors in the state, our own Shucks Seafood. And I have with me today from our chamber some of my dear friends, Donna Davis, Jeff Jones, Ralph Staffens, Diallo Cartwright, and Terry Bennett. So I hope to see you all this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 38th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues. Well, political posturing can be a tricky and sometimes harmful business. Over the weekend, I saw a lot of chatter about 504 plans, and truly I assumed that Elon Musk stuck his nose in something that he clearly had no clue about. So you can imagine my shock when I researched the matter and found out it was actually our Attorney General. As a former educator, school leader, and someone who has spent years advocating for students, I stand here to strongly urge the Attorney General not to support any lawsuit that will strip away 504 plans from Georgia's children, as is the case of Texas v. Becerra. 504 plans are not a luxury. They are a necessity. They level the playing field for students with disabilities, ensuring that they have access to the education that their peers do. Without them, a child with ADHD may struggle to focus in class, a student with diabetes may not receive life-saving accommodations, and a child with dyslexia may be left behind simply because they learn differently. I've seen firsthand what happens when students have the right support. They thrive, they graduate, they become contributing members of our society. But I've also seen what happens when those supports are denied. Frustration, failure, and in too many cases, students giving up altogether. Eliminating 504 plans would be disastrous for Georgia's children, family, and schools. It would set us back decades, widening opportunity gaps and forcing students to struggle unnecessarily. We should be expanding access to educational support, not taking it away. I strongly urge the Attorney General, do not stand with those 16 other states and on the side of exclusion. Stand with Georgia's students and their parents. Their futures depend on it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Recognize the senator from the 9th.
So today I rise, excuse me, a bit outraged. We have on our calendar today SB 52. It is a Timberland Recovery Exemption and Earning Stability Act. I support that bill. My name is on the bill. And it's so that we can get critical recovery money to our Georgia citizens. But again, I'm outraged not just as a citizen of this great state, but as someone who believes in fairness, accountability, and standing by our communities, especially in the time of crisis. When natural disasters strike, it has long been the practice of the federal government to step up and provide relief. But what we've seen in the wake of Hurricane Helene is outright failure of the leadership of the Trump administration. Traditionally, federal disaster relief follows a 90-10 funding match, 90% covered by the federal government and 10% by the state. This standard has been upheld across administrations, no matter what president is sitting there. And this was including under President Biden, who ensured that states across the country received the help they needed after major disasters. Even a red state like ours gave us the money. But now, under President Trump, that precedent has been cast aside. Instead of providing Georgia with the expected 90% federal funding match, the Trump administration has slashed that number to just 75%, forcing our state to shoulder an extra financial burden we should not have to bear. Governor Kemp has been left with no choice but to include this in the budget. Millions of dollars to cover this shortfall. Money that could have been used to lower the cost of living, improve infrastructure, invest in education. I would say housing, that's almost number one that I hear all the time. But instead, our tax dollars are being redirected to recover gaps left by the federal government. A federal government that has turned its back on the state of Georgia. This isn't about numbers on a budget sheet. This is about our communities, and it's about our families that are still recovering, businesses that are struggling to rebuild, local governments working to clear debris and restore essential services. They deserve better. We deserve better. And let's be clear, this denial of adequate relief is not just a bureaucratic oversight. It is a deliberate decision. When Georgia requested an extension to receive critical aid for cleanup and emergency protective measures, the Trump administration outright denied it, saying that the increased level of funding is not warranted. Not warranted. Tell that to the families who lost their homes. Tell it to the local officials who are scrambling to cover costs. Tell it to every Georgian who believes in fairness and the principle in times of need that the federal government should step up and not step back. This isn't a partisan issue, clearly. We have SB 52. My name's on it. This is about standing up with our state and demanding what is rightfully ours. The Trump administration must be held accountable for failing Georgia when Georgia needed the help most. And we must make it clear that we will not tolerate being left behind. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from the 14th.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is the Senator from the 14th, and this is Trump Afternoon Tea. Trump Afternoon Tea, an official subsidiary and affiliate of Trump Morning News, your number one leader in Trump news entertainment. Today in Trump Afternoon Tea, everybody in the federal government seems to either be fired or resigning. Last week, over 10,000 federal employees were fired. The legality of many of these firings still in question because of civil service protections. Just to review a couple of the firings, hundreds of Federal Aviation Administration employees were fired. The claim by the administration was that these were probationary employees, but whatever AI search technology the administration used to identify probationary employees also accidentally included probationary promotions, meaning people who are promoted to higher levels of responsibility who may not be legally able to be fired. As you know and are very well aware, we have had a couple aviation accidents and disasters in the last few weeks that are calling the public's attention squarely to aviation safety and an industry that engineers are hard to find in regardless. 300 staff were recently fired from the National Nuclear Security Administration, or NNSA, the agency responsible for building and maintaining and overseeing our nuclear stockpiles. Reports are that Congresspeople intervened personally, privately behind the scenes to explain to Elon Musk what the National Nuclear Security Administration does, and as a result, Musk and his team tried to reverse the vast majority of those firings so that anybody would be overseeing our nuclear stockpiles. As you know, our correspondent from the 44th covered the CDC firings of 1,300 staff, some of whom included disease detectors responsible for responding to outbreaks. Now, of course, Elon Musk, our co-president, is looking for more opportunities to take a hatchet to the entire federal government, including alleging, I apologize to the senator from the 50th for that terminology. That was offensive. They have looked for other ways to take an axe to the federal government, including to look at the Social Security Administration, misread the data, and assume wrongly that millions of 150-year-old people are wrongfully receiving Social Security benefits. Of course, this is the predictable narrative framing that will come in advance of attempts to cut Social Security and Medicare, notwithstanding campaign promises. But of course, some federal officials resigned. You may be familiar with the New York case of Eric Adams, current New York mayor, who was caught receiving and sending text messages with Turkish officials to accept gifts totaling over $100,000 in value in exchange for allowing the Turkish government to establish a consulate in New York City. This is, to say the least, against federal law. The Southern District of New York had been engaged in an indictment, a prosecution of Eric Adams, that has recently been moved to be dismissed. Why? Because New York prosecutors, including Danielle Sassoon and Hagen Scotton, some of the best luminaries of the Southern District of New York office, and also both personally conservatives, refused to dismiss the indictment at the direction of top DOJ officials in a plainly partisan and political exchange between President Trump and Eric Adams, who sought his favor. In the course of these events, Trump Deputy Emil Bove locked DOJ attorneys in a room for an hour and said, if you cannot pick the person who's going to dismiss the Eric Adams indictment, all of you are fired. They had a conversation. One senior attorney agreed to do it, but then backed out. And Emil Bove, the second in command at DOJ, had to sign the filing himself because DOJ attorneys were committed to DOJ independence and the rule of law. Just today, there's reporting that a D.C. prosecutor resigned their position instead of carrying out an order to investigate a government contractee criminally and to seize their assets. Here with critical commentary on today's news, our special guest, the senator from the 14th. Senator from the 14th. So to be very clear, very clear, the New York mayor, whose deputies are resigning en masse, the deputy mayors, because of how corrupt the New York mayor is and how obvious his deal was with President Trump, his indictment may be dismissed because he spent the last few weeks and months kissing Trump you-know-what. This is not a democracy that adheres to the rule of law if you have to go kiss the ring of the sovereign, the strong man, in order to get selective political favor in the criminal process. And I want to be clear that you heard me on the D.C. prosecutor resigning. There is now a directive within DOJ to find somebody who's an opponent to criminally investigate and seize their assets. Okay? Now, I could go into, I don't have much time left, I could go into Brian Kemp, the governor of this state, rolling over and kind of doing his normal dance of sucking up or standing up to Trump, depending on the day, neither of which really works. But when he said that sometimes government should be, quote, right-sized, he's talking about 1,300 CDC employees, vast majority of whom are Georgians, who are doing God's work in protecting against some of the worst natural disasters that can happen. Do we remember that 5 years ago COVID happened? And is still happening in some regard. Well, that's all the time we have for Trump Afternoon Tea. As always, colleagues, we remind you, you're just state legislators. There's nothing you can do directly about this, and there's nothing the Republican Party could have done in the last 20 years to prevent this from happening. Join us next time on Trump Morning News. Thanks, Mr. President.
Oh, Moments with McLaurin. That's going to be your podcast. Brought to you by the foundation of Fifth Place is a Good Place. Recognize senators from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to address a pressing issue that affects not only our businesses, but also the livelihood of countless Georgians, tort reform. As we look at the landscape of our state, it's critical to recognize the significant financial burden that companies like the Coca-Cola Bottling Company United, which is the bottlers of Coca-Cola, face due to the current legal environment. Over the last 7 years, the average cost of claims per truck on the road in Georgia has skyrocketed. To put this in perspective, these costs are 8 times higher than the Coca-Cola Bottling Company United pays in Florida, 9 times what's in Mississippi, 8 times in Alabama, and an astonishing 50 times in Tennessee. Such disparities are not just numbers, they represent a substantial financial strain on our operations and ultimately on customers and on employees alike. Furthermore, while Coca-Cola United typically anticipates auto insurance rates increasing 4 to 8%, they are now faced with 12 to 20%. Just last year, they experienced an 18% increase. These trends that are unsustainable and threaten the economic stability of the business community. Tort reform is a necessary step to create more equal and predictable legal atmosphere. By advocating for reform, we can help reduce frivolous lawsuits, lower insurance costs, and foster a healthy business environment in the state of Georgia. Together, we can ensure that Georgia remains a competitive place for business to thrive while protecting the interests of our citizens and keeping Georgia the #1 place to do business. Mr. President, thank you.
Recognize the senator from the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been a lot of talk about news flashes, so I'm going to provide one this morning or this afternoon. This is the Georgia State Senate. This is the Georgia legislature, and we are in the Georgia State Capitol. We can spend an hour each day talking about everything going on in Washington, D.C. And if you really want to do that, I would encourage you to run for Congress. And you can stand on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, the United States Senate, and you could talk about all things federal. But I understand that you want something to say. But if you want to have something to say, why don't you talk about what's happening in Georgia? Because I haven't seen anybody come to this well to talk about the largest ethics fine in the history of the state of Georgia, $300,000 to the New Georgia Project. Comments from the senator from the 14th? I don't see you here talking about that one. Folks, that was the largest fine founded by ex-governor candidate Stacey Abrams, ran by former Senator current Senator Raphael Warnock, and they've been referred to the Department of Justice for possible criminal justice charges. So don't come up here and spend an hour of our day talking about everything in the federal government that you don't like when you're not willing to talk about the things happen right here in the state. Let's get back to business, folks. Thank you. I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to rise on a point of personal privilege? You have before you a consent calendar of privilege resolutions. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? Chair hears none. The resolution on the consent calendars are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? I now recognize the senator from the 51st.
Mr. President, I move that Senate Bill 52 be engrossed at this time.
Senator has moved that Senate Bill 52 be engrossed. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 52 by Senator Goodman VIII, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to ad valorem taxation of property so as to authorize certain local governing authorities to provide temporary tax relief from the taxes levied for the harvest or sale of standing timber in certain disaster areas, to provide for rules and regulations, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to provide for a short title and all legislative findings and intent, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
I do hear objection. So it is objection. Senator, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, as we all know, revenue bills and ethics bills routinely get engrossed in this chamber. This bill deals with revenue, primarily with timber tax, so I will be happy to take questions or yield and ask for your favorable consideration to engross Senate Bill 52. Thank you.
Senator from the 41st, would you like to speak to your objection? You waive. Senator waives on her objection. So the question is on the motion from Senator from the 51st to engross Senate Bill 52. All those in favor of the majority leader's motion will vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the motion to engross, the yeas are 31, the nays are 20, and this motion has received the necessary votes to adopt the motion of engrossment. Moving on to the rules calendar. Senate Bill 52. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 52 by Senator Goodman VIII and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to ad valorem taxation of property so as to authorize certain local governing authorities to provide temporary tax relief from the taxes levied for the harvest or sale of standing timber in certain disaster areas, to provide for rules and regulations, to provide for definitions, to provide for related matters, to provide for a short title and legislative findings and intent, to provide for an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler, 52nd District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 52, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to ad valorem taxation of property so as to authorize certain local governing authorities to provide temporary tax relief from taxes levied for the harvest or sale of standing timber from eligible timber property that was severely damaged or destroyed in certain disaster areas, to provide for conditions and procedures, and for other purposes. Mr. President, a fiscal note has been attached. That completes the order.
I recognize the gentleman from Titletown, USA, Lowndes County, Georgia, the blueberry farmer himself. To the west.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it's my honor to present to you Senate Bill 52, the TREES Act, the Timberlands Recovery Exemption and Earnings Stability Act. And I want to just take this opportunity, been working on this now since right after the hurricane, and I really want to thank James Beal, who's no longer in the Pro Tem's office, but he really, we worked on this for months, and I want to thank him for all his help. You all know the state of Georgia is 38 million acres, and of that 38 million acres, 22 million acres is timberland. Hurricane Helene came through Georgia, and worst natural disaster in our state's history. It damaged or destroyed 37% of the timberland in the state of Georgia. So what this bill does is it suspends the severance tax or timber tax for the last quarter of 24 and all of year 25 while we are harvesting all of this storm damaged timber. It also creates a avenue for the counties to apply for a grant to the state to be able to be paid on the last 3 years running average of their timber tax dollars. So the timber tax is taxed on a dollar amount, not a volume amount. So we have timber right now that would normally be selling for $25 a ton that is being sold for as little as 50 cents a ton. So what this bill is going to do is it's going to help those that have seen their timber destroyed, people's retirements, their children's college fund, and it's also going to help the communities who've been hit with this hurricane, who are going to see such a huge loss of revenue. In rural counties like mine, the poorer counties, the timber tax is 10% of the total budget of my county. This is a good bill, passed unanimously out of Senate Finance. It has over 40 co-sponsors. It was sponsored by both the pro tem, the majority leader, the minority leader, and I just want to thank all of you all for supporting me in this effort and trying to help my folks and the folks back home that have been devastated from this hurricane. And with that, Mr. President, I'll yield for questions.
You do have one question, Senator. Senator from 26.
Well, Senator, yeah.
I do, to my great friend from the 26.
You called me that, but let me ask you a question. What are we going to do about these folks? Have all their belongings, machinery, land, everything, tied up at the bank, and don't have any capital to work with, and the bank's calling the loans due. What are we going to do about low interest loans for those folks who have families and get out and work every day in this business?
Yes, sir. I just want to say, first off, I want to thank you for keeping this at the forefront in everybody in this chamber's mind, from as a farmer and a forester and somebody from rural Georgia. I really appreciate it. I have sat there with a smile on my face every time you've gone to the well, and you kept this at the forefront. Currently, after the hurricane, there was $100 million that was put in the Georgia Development Authority for low-interest loans, 2% loans, to farmers and foresters. It was $75 million for ag and $25 million for forestry. My understanding is currently in the House budget, there's $150 million in addition to that other $100 million, which would be $250 million. Currently, I think it's $75 million for ag and $75 million for forestry. And of course, we can always add to it when it comes over here. We also have the House Bill 223 that is coming. That's the governor's bill. I'll be carrying it in the Senate, and it creates a $200 million reforestation tax credit, and it's also going to help it be applied to pecans too. And it's along with that, it also exempts any from state income tax any disaster dollars that come from the federal government, as well as crop insurance proceeds. And it also allows for, like, we lost 480 chicken houses. It allows the gate card to be applied to that as well. So there's a number of initiatives that are coming, and it's building ahead of steam, I'd say. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to continue working to do everything that we can to help. I can speak from personal experience because we took a generational loss at our farm, and we just clear cut 500 acres for about 20% of what it would have been worth otherwise. And so it's been, I've seen a lot of heartbreak. I've seen more despair throughout this storm, and folks would come down, whether it be our representatives from our senator's office or congressional offices, and I would set them up and go meet with these farmers, and I've seen it firsthand, and it's tough. It's tough to see a grown man that would just as soon do anything in this world and show another man vulnerability, break down in front of you. But, you know, we're tough, we're strong. Tough times never last, tough people do, and we got to do what we can at the state level. But down on the farm, we're going to pull up our bootstraps. I grew up in the 80s when a third of the family farms in this country were foreclosed on, and we made it through that. But we're doing everything we can, Senator.
Recognize Senator from the 53rd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know you have a good heart and good intention of this, Senator, but would you yield for a question?
I'd be glad to.
Senator, help me understand this. Timber is not taxed until it's harvested, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so if I have some contiguous land and part of it's been damaged, but the other part hasn't, and it's still good timber, I'm going to be able to sell that now, the good timber, without it being taxed.
Yeah, the thing about it is the bill only applies to the counties that are declared FEMA disaster counties.
I understand that.
And we're selling wood for 50 cents, $1. Nobody in their right mind is going to sell timber right now in this market. But I will also say that there is a provision in this bill where the Georgia Forestry Commission, you'll go and you can certify, and the Georgia Forestry Commission is going to be and they'll be tasked with doing spot audits as well as far as the damage.
Senator, if the price is already low and there's no tax, does that not incentivize more people to sell timber and flood the market and make prices go that much lower?
No, sir. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. If you have timber that would normally sell for $25 a ton, and if you could say, and when you have a market where you have, we probably won't most of these loggers aren't logging but 4 days a week. The mills do not have the capacity to handle the amount of salvage wood that's out there. We probably won't end up harvesting but 15% of the wood that's been damaged across. I mean, you wouldn't say, if your truck's worth $30,000, you wouldn't sell it for $3,000. You understand what I'm saying?
So are you suggesting, Senator, that because the logs are not worth anything, this adds some relief to go to the mill and keeps the government out of a cut?
They're not having to pay taxes on, they've already lost 90% of the value of their timber. They're not having to pay another tax on top of that after they've already lost 90%, as well as it helps the counties, the rural counties like mine that depend on the timber tax to help fund local school boards and counties. And honestly, we've had so much cost with trying to recover from the storm in general.
Okay, Senator, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You do have one more question, Senator from 36.
Thank you to my friend from Lowndes. I know we passed the bill in Finance Committee 100%, if memory serves me. And I've complimented you, isn't it true, in private about how much you have done to put the human face on the devastation that swept our state, particularly down in South Georgia, where you are. But my question is, the governor, as I understand it, you were talking about the way the money's going to be moving and what's in the budget. And as I understand it, the governor had already put disaster money in the budget in the wake of this generational storm, as you have educated us. And yet now it seems that we're going to be forced, since FEMA did a rope-a-dope and said, move the goalpost, and said, no, we're not going to pay 90%. We're going to send you 75%. Elon, that guy, that's up there making all those big decisions. And so the question is, the governor stepped up and said, well, we've got money in the budget to fill that hole, but that means that there won't be as much money coming for storm relief to Georgia. Isn't that right? Am I understanding the numbers right?
Well, I would say that we've got quite a bit of money in reserves, and I feel like we're if you add it all together, I think it's somewhere close to $900 million, getting close to $1 billion that we're coming from state funds to help try to recover. And there again, no one's ever going to be made whole with this. And when the sun went down the night of the storm, when it came back up, we'd lost a third of our largest industry in the state. has to the FEMA deal. You know, I have nothing to do with that, but I would just say that I encourage the folks in our congressional delegation to try to encourage it be extended. But I think there again, it's our job to do what we can within this chamber, within the power that we have, and I think that's what this bill does. It shows that we're in good faith doing what we can to help our fellow Georgians.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You have no more questions, Senator.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I urge your favorable consideration, and thank you for everyone that helped support this. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Hearing none, the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed, nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53 and the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Moving on to, good job, Senator. Moving on to Senate Bill 58. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 58 by Senator Albers of the 56 and others, the bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 11 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to emergency medical services so as to provide for the licensing and operation of emergency organ transport vehicles as ambulance services, to provide for the operation of such vehicles on public roadways, to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to motor vehicles and traffic so as to exempt emergency organ transport vehicles from those vehicles required to obtain an emergency vehicle permit from the Department of Public Safety, to revise and provide for definitions, to provide for a short title, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson, the 1st District Chairman. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Recognize the Senator from the 56.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 58 is the Georgia Transporting Life-Saving Organs and Personnel Act. Most of you know it's a very personal story to me, being an organ donor, and I've worked closely with all of the different groups representing our hospitals, organ donations, national groups that come together to make sure that whether a living donor or a deceased donor, that their organs get to the intended recipient on time and they're able to save their life. Sometimes there is time constraints of getting an organ from a hospital to another hospital. Sometimes it's coming from an airplane through the airport to a hospital and vice versa. Many of you may have seen on the roads that there are organ vehicles that look very similar to either a fire response or an ambulance. They have red lights and sirens on them, the very same that we do on other emergency vehicles. I was proud to work with our Colonel of the State Patrol and our Commissioner of Public Safety, Billy Hitchens, to come up with a protocol that matches everything else in Georgia law to make sure that these vehicles have the same exact rules, follow the same permitting process, and have the same trained and qualified personnel at the times they need to run full emergency. That will not be often, but when it will surely save someone's life to get there in a timely fashion. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I will yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You do have a couple questions, Senator. Recognize the Senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
Isn't it true that I've had dealings with the transplant for many years now and brought about several bills that never passed?
Senator, you have been a part of this the whole time, and you helped me pass the Giving the Gift of Life here in Georgia, and I know that you came to the well and talked about that bill and how important it was and how personal it is to your family, and I treasure the time that you've spent on this issue with me.
Thank you, and thank you for giving your kidney to your son.
Thank you,
And
Senator.
you know, my teenage son that was killed by the drunk driver is still living in 11 people because he was a donor. And my late husband waited 10 years, though, for a kidney and didn't get it before he went to heaven. So this is an important bill, and I am going to definitely vote for it and urge everyone else to vote for it. So thank you very much.
Senator, thank you so much for that, and this is to make sure, like your husband, that nobody else misses that opportunity, and I know he and your son are in heaven, and your son's living on, and all those people today, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Recognize the Senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield?
Yes, sir.
Senator, these vehicles being used, they will be used to transport vital organs between hospitals and other medical facilities where the operations are taking place. Is that true?
Yes, Senator, that's true. In fact, sometimes if someone is a deceased donor, they may be in one area of the state, and they may get the process to take that organ, but they may be in another transplant hospital. Our two main ones here happen to be in Emory and Piedmont, and they need to get there at a certain time. And depending on the organ, sometimes it's not just the organ, it's also the medical personnel that go with that organ.
Senator, for the yield?
Yes, sir.
And Senators, at my understanding, these vehicles would be running code full-time when you saw them. So rarely would you ever see one of these unless after a drop-off that the vehicle would not be in full code, using the same rules of the road that every other emergency vehicle uses, as trained in the emergency vehicle operation course that's taught at Gypstick here in Georgia.
That is correct, Senator, and most all of the folks that are operating those vehicles are our former brothers and sisters, retired police officers, firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics, who this is part of their effort to give back in their retirement years, who are fully trained.
Thank you, Senator.
No further questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd urge everyone to please vote green, and let's save some lives here in Georgia today. Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53 and nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Moving on to Senate Bill 81. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 81 by Senator Brass to the 6th and others. The bill is being titled an act to amend Article 22, Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to motor vehicle franchise practices so as to provide for protection of consumer data and motor vehicle sales or lease transactions by affiliates or franchisors, manufacturers, and distributors, to amend Code Section 40-2-39 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to registration and licensing of new motor vehicle dealers, temporary site permits, administrative fines, and penalty, so to provide for activities which qualify as activity as a new motor vehicle dealer, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser to the 46th District Chairman. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 81. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 22 of Chapter 1 of Title 10 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to motor vehicle franchise practices so as to provide for protection of consumer data in motor vehicle sales or lease transactions by affiliates of franchisors, manufacturers, and distributors, to provide for procedures, conditions, and limitations on the use of motor vehicle dealer data and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Brass offers the following amendment number 1 to amend the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities substitute to Senate Bill 81 by replacing lines 68 through 72 with the following: removing and B, a person to whom consumer data was provided or the specific consumer data provided to such person, if a dealer has previously consented in writing to such person receiving such consumer data and the dealer has not withdrawn such consent in writing, inserting C, and a person to whom consumer data was provided or the specific consumer data provided to such person, if that would require a franchisor, manufacturer, distributor, or affiliate thereof to violate any applicable restrictions on reuse or disclosure of consumer data established by federal or state law. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Recognize the senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was beginning to wonder if you were going to call me up here. I don't feel like this should take long since the reader just read the entire bill for us. But I do bring you SB 81, and these are going to be some changes to our Georgia Franchise Practices Act. And let me give you a brief history of Georgia's first Motor Vehicle Franchise Practices Act. Senate Bill 81 is a modified version of this, but all 50 states have enacted a franchise law. Georgia's General Assembly passed Georgia's first Motor Vehicle Franchises Practice Act in the mid-'70s, and in 1981, it was the intent of the Georgia General Assembly to considerably reenact new motor vehicle franchise legislation. In 1992, Georgia's Constitution Amendment 6 was passed by 60% approval, authorizing the Georgia General Assembly to regulate the motor vehicle dealers, manufacturers, and distributors to prevent unfair business practices. And this constitutional amendment is one thing that makes us unique against all other 49 states. And another thing that makes us unique is we don't update this Franchise Practice Act every single year. Many other states do it every single year. And one last thing that makes us unique is our opposing parties get together before they bring us legislation and work out their differences on the front end. In other states, this is a long, drawn-out fight. I know the senator from the 10th is very aware of all this, and but they get together and bring us some legislation, and that's what I have before you. So what you're going to find in this bill is there's really 5 key areas. There's legislative findings, data protection, over-the-air updates, also known as OTAs, allocation, and showrooms/galleries. So in the legislative findings, the proposed changes to the legislative findings would reflect recent industry changes and legislative intent. In the data protection section, you're going to see these changes are designed to promote competition and data management and integration, help dealers secure and monitor third-party access to ensure customer data protection. Y'all may remember there was a large breach this past year and shut down sales across the eastern seaboard, lost millions of dollars in potential revenues, not just for our dealers, but also in tax revenue. So the data protection piece is the most important part of this bill. Just some of the highlights there: it prevents unauthorized access, sharing, or selling of dealership data from their dealer management systems, prohibits third parties from limiting dealerships' ability to protect, store, or use its data, permit dealers to continuously monitor or audit data access from or written to their data systems without interference. Getting into the over-the-air updates, this is, again, the OTA section. The increasing use of OTA updates has raised...
Senator, I think we can all read, and you have no questions, so... So, yield the well.
You made me wait in my seat.
This ain't story time. Yield the well.
You made me wait in my seat to bring this bill. I want to thoroughly vet it. Since there are no questions, I'll ask for your favorable consideration.
Good grief.
Senate Bill 81. And before I talk you out of a vote, I will yield the well.
Thank you, Senator. For those who don't know now, he and I have known each other since college, so I can get on him like that. Some of the other ones in here that have some feelings. Brass doesn't have any feelings, so. You know. Recognize the senator from the 53rd. For what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, is it not true that had the senator remained speaking, he could have convinced me to have voted for this, even though he convinced the senator from the 47th to vote against it?
There's not enough daylight hours to convince you to vote for something, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. Is there objection to the previous question being ordered? Actually, hold on, let me do the amendment first. The amendment authored by Amendment number 1, authored by the senator from the 6th, the author of the bill. Is there objection to the amendment? We already read the amendment, guys. So, no objection. Y'all want Mr. Rogers to come back up here and explain it to us again? So, would you like to speak to the amendment, Senator? Come on back up here. I thought I was done with you.
I'm not giving up on the senator from the 53rd, although the rest of you may have. I got faith in you, brother. This amendment is simple. It clarifies that the bill does not require disclosure of any data if the dealer or if such disclosure would be a violation of federal or state privacy laws. I'll yield the well.
Senator is yielded. On amendment number 1, is there objection to amendment number 1? Without objection, amendment number 1 is adopted. Is there objection to the previous question being adopted? Adoption of the previous question as committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Hearing none, the committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. All opposed nay. Secretary, unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Recognize the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand in recess pending receipt of a message from the House, and that upon receipt of said message and assignment of House Bill 92, the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, February the 19th.
The majority leader has moved. Secretary, read the announcements.
Mr. President, the Rules Committee will meet upon adjournment in room 450 in the Capitol. At 3:30, the Higher Education Committee will meet in room 307 in the CLOB. At 3:30, the Banking and Financial Institutions Committee will meet in room 450 in the Capitol. At 4:30, the Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee will meet in room 450 in the Capitol. At 5:30, the Education Youth Committee will meet in room 307 in the CLOB. And tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., the Economic Development and Tourism Committee will meet in room 450 in the Capitol. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Going once, going twice. All those in favor of the majority leader's motion to stand in recess until we've received information from the House, then move on to adjourn. All those in favor of the majority leader's motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes clearly have it. Y'all have a good day.
The Senate will come to order. We've received a message from the House. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. President, the following messages were received from the House through Mr. Riley, the clerk thereof. Mr. President, the House has passed by the requisite constitutional majority the following bill of the House. House Bill 92 by Representative Blackman of the 146 and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48-5-44.2 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated related to base year homestead exemption so as to postpone the date by which local governing authorities are authorized to opt out of such homestead exemption, to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Finance. Pursuant to the previous motion, the Senate will stand adjourned.